I have to say thank you so much, each of you that are taking the time out of your day and night to be here. It makes a big difference. I had a lot of nervousness about doing this without an audience. You know, I've planned a lot of poetry readings and participated in many, but never virtually like this. And I have to say it's very heartening to see every one of your faces, so thank you so much for being here. So you've seen the cover of the book. I'm using for a marker a lovely note that I got from Burnham Holmes, one of my good poet friends. And as I was preparing for this, I was reading this note over and over to give me courage, Burnham.
Thank you.
So thank you. Also an excellent poet. So the first poem I thought I'd read seems to go with the times that we're in. And it's called What's the Hurry? Clearly, those of us who travel a lot in Vermont, and I know that Cheryl is one of these, has a lot of trouble not putting your foot to the pedal and going faster than the speed limit. So this is one of these times when I was hurrying down to Boston for my niece's graduation, and I passed a car on Killington, and it was a grave error. So here's What's the Hurry. Turtle-like, the officer blinks his eyes, head large through my open window. License and registration, ma'am? Already prepared, they fit into his square hand. He ambles slowly back to his black shell, blue light flashing its warning to others, semi-numbed by the road, still easing their way down the mountain. I, abruptly halted in mid-rise between two peaks, wait and wait and wait. Slowly he lumbers back. Got to ask you a question. Might seem odd. Are you in the military? Then, with surprise, you have a perfect record. Yes, I'm careful. Careful. Full of cares. Too many jostling for consideration. So here's part 2. Drive time, dream time, settling in for the long haul. Time stands still, one lane only, no choice but to follow. Rain, sleet, road work, trucks. I ruminate. $178. Remembering his dark, hooded turtle eyes. Slow speech. Ma'am, what's the hurry? An old Italian proverb comes to mind. He who rushes meets death more quickly. 3. Rain slants heavy on the glass. I stare through slits as if the light of sight could penetrate more deeply into the question of this night. Turtle floats, dives, disappears. Ripples skim the silvered surface. Light holds the center. Eyes rise, slowly blink. What's the hurry? So I think that these days are teaching us more about what is worth hurrying about. We're all learning to live, some of us, with less. As I think about some of my children, maybe their lives are more complex and they have even more to deal with. Second poem is interesting because I know, especially in Quaker meeting, people talk a lot about, feelings for what's going on in the world, empathy for people having great difficulties. Sometimes even on a very intimate scale in a family, things can happen that are quite challenging. So this comes out of one of those experiences. A familiar face looks at me as if I don't exist. Where did she learn such lessons? How is it that the heart, pumping life throughout the body, can turn so against life? Palestinians immolate themselves to kill Jews. Serbs rape Muslim women. Hutu murder Tutsi and vice versa. Truth and Reconciliation seeks to nurture the wounds of a nation's war against itself. The Dalai Lama moved Tibet's heart to Dharamsala. What about the human heart? Pumping life, pumping love, pumping hate. How do we find the center place where wrongs and wounds are laid to rest, where the breath of every day subsumes the hurt, and life, again, is pumped into life? So, in the Buddhist tradition, practice is essential every moment of every day that we remember. And the lesson is always there, or the challenge. Now, those of you who know me well, and quite a few of you do know me pretty well, know how important my Italian heritage is to me. And this next poem is called Il Giardino, the garden. And it actually is a piece of land that is still in our family after more than 120 or 30 years. And so it's the garden of ancestral land in Lapio, the province of Italy, province of Avellino in Italy. And when I was a student in Rome in 62 and 63, I spent a lot of time down in Lapio because the university was on strike most of the time. And one of my favorite poets, Leopardi, had written a poem which is referred to here, The Infinite. And I used to stand at that valley and look out, and the words of the poem would come to me. And at the moment, there's actually a bronze plaque that's installed with that poem on it in honor of my family. So from the stone house, the walk down the valley is steep. A cobbled road switches back and forth. I choose the footpaths tight to the hillside, between the orchards and the fields. Golden grass beneath the olives makes a soft resting place. Ladders, narrow at the top, lean against stout trunks. The mother tongue calls through the valley in the ancient rhymes and verses of the ancestors. Words I rarely hear, but recognize instantly. Silvered thin branches twisted by wind and age whisper in the language of my grandmother, Neapolitan tinged with Spanish, Greek, and French. Ho visto paradiso, I've seen paradise. In the giardino of our family, olives roll between my fingers as between my great-grandfather's, as he tested the plumpness of the yearly harvest. We touch across 100 years, his hand and mine, meet on this small plot. Leopardi's infinito echoes in the silences of the steep valley. Il naufragar mia dolce in questo mare. How sweet to be shipwrecked in this sea. The view carries the eye beyond line of sight into the vastness of a space, denying any notation of time. This full harvest, abundant in its fruits, slakes our thirst for ancestral earth. Sated, we lie at rest, merging with the vines and roots of olives. So I have to say that my connection to that place is infinite. So the next is a poem that several people whom I've gifted the book to have commented on. And so I'm reading it because I think that it has a lot to do with the moment in which we see ourselves. So it's called What Do I See? What is this jumble of mind, as if the strands of life's weave were loosed? The regular pattern of knit and purl, surreptitiously interrupted, snipped here and there in the most unexpected places. As pulls of day to day stretch the fabric more taut, spaces open, gaps appear. What do I see in the interstices? My mother's ample form squeezes through. my brother's pains, daughter's courage, husband's illness, my own breathed fears. Night is filled with visions between the strands, like a movie continuously playing, visible only in the open weave. Still, despite the tugs of worry widening the holes, the fabric doesn't give way, but keeps expanding to fit the changing form that dreams and waking life create. Images move like light on water, shimmering slivers of bright and dark, commingling like a Monet river, finding its way around a rustic bend. A slight wind unfetters yellow leaves that flutter softly like a shower of butterflies down into the stream of birth and death. Oh, I guess this is interesting. So it wouldn't be a poetry reading, or it wouldn't be a poetry book without a love poem, right? There's more than one love poem in here, but this is one that stretches over decades. So maybe some of you will relate. So who's laughing? Is that Burnham? Okay.
I was just thinking coitus interruptus.
It's not quite as graphic as that, but okay, here we are. It's called In Those Days We Were Naked Clothed. And the subtitle in Italian is Il primo amore non si scorda mai. First love is never forgotten. So here's the first part. What would it have been like to have made love to you then, as many times as I wanted? Desire like a magnet, drawing our bodies close, so there was no distance between. Who was the magnet for whom? Who the positive? Who the negative? Like those two charged forces, when in each other's presence, the only natural thing to do was bond. What if, instead of listening to my mother, I'd let my hands, arms, legs wrap around you as strongly as they wished? What if I'd taken you inside me, inside my hungry, desirous inner mouth? What if, instead of respecting a certain Catholic distance, you held me as close as we both desired? What if we'd said the deepest yes to each other that we could? So here's part 2. You came to me tonight in this dream, life-worn but still beautiful. My heart quickened to be walking beside you. I could feel it still, that gravitational pull of your nearness. In fits and starts, just as then, we were near and interrupted by circumstance. You reached out as if I would just slip into the space fitting the curve of your body. 46 years later, I am still unsure. My husband is sleeping beside me. I'm reticent. You make a small sardonic remark, your way of deflecting pain. How clearly I see it now as I never did then, and I am touched to tears. I see you soft, desirous. I see us young, so tenderly young. I want to give myself to you, finally acknowledge how deeply and innocently we loved each other. I suddenly understand how lovers destroy lives in the wake of desire so strong it transcends decades. And still, I am not free. 3. I regret that I could not meet you fully as we lay near the sea in our bed of crushed long grass, hidden even from the sharp eyes of gulls, the sense of Europe's earth shared between us. Even now I can feel you pressing against me, gently stroking, pushing into my soft, closed thighs. Does that summer breeze of youth waft only once in a life's time? Here's 4. I'm returning now to the dream, and I'm going to hold you as close as bodies get, skin dissolving until our bones meet, and these two old skeletons become one. It's a good thing that dreams can settle some issues. I'd like
The
to.
dreams are very vivid in these days, I can tell.
They certainly. Oh well, this is. It's a while since I had that dream, but I do love it actually. So this is really a tribute to my parents in a sense, and also to the title of the book, A Journey. So it's called The Trailer. Oh, and as I was thinking about things today, you know, some of us have lost people prematurely in this pandemic. And sometimes it brought up to me the fact my father died much younger than anyone expected of brain cancer. And sometimes we always have to deal with the unexpected, but sometimes it's more dramatic than we'd like. So this is called The Trailer. They would have loved it, talked about it for years. A motorhome filled with everything you'd need to live for months on the road. Vistas opening before the large slanted front windows. She at the wheel, he looking at spaces barely imagined, except late at night in his office, overlooking the sleeping city. Always on the obverse schedule, working while others slumbered. His private dreams lived a life of their own. Dutiful son, dutiful husband, dutiful father. The second-generation urban immigrant, philosopher, gazed out of tiered glass, watching lights spread across the quiet city like bounteous stars over a desert. Dreaming of Alaska and California, as far from the red brick of Boston as one could go and still be in America. Roving in imagination to explore the land in which he'd lived but never known. Although he died before the dream was realized, I like to think that in those odd, unfettered moments, my father became his beloved Ulysses, standing before the sail of the world, staring into the sea of possibility. So my father was always quoting Ulysses or some tract from St. Thomas Aquinas. What can I say? We wish we'd had him a little longer. In honor of Earth Day, I'd like to read a short poem. I think we're all becoming even more conscious of what we've been doing to the earth and seeing through this pandemic that what we do and what we don't do can make a huge difference. The surface of the earth is thin, like skin. We seldom sense it as so subtle, so delicate. An integument, breathing, flowing, flowering, suffocating, crusted over with empty cans, metal, plastic bits of litter. It still struggles to send forth shoots of life. When will we learn to tender it a gentle touch, as if caressing a lover who gives us food and drink and a soft place to rest? So let's see. Oh, so many of us have become grandparents. And when we get together naturally, all we can do is talk about that kind of joy, which isn't matched by any other. And so this is a tribute to my twin granddaughters, called Gemelle, when they were much younger than they are now. The twins are dancing, their slender curved bodies white under filmy tutus. Supple and graceful, they whirl and reach to the strumming beats of Italian music on this sunny Wilbur Street afternoon. Ava closes her eyes, steps through space, arms outstretched, open to the world. Nina smiles softly, twirls with concentration, deep in her private world, ending with a practiced bow. A scene of sheer magic as they step onto the stage of their lives. So innocent, so pure. They embrace the world and are embraced in turn. Like the crystal globe that Nina clasps, this moment is held in time, memory fixing it forever as they two blissfully float in the contained and golden space of home. So, certainly having grandchildren is an extraordinary blessing. It's worth every white hair. Let's see, I think I'll read a tribute to poetry, or how it comes sometimes. It's called Keeping Company, and then I'll finish up. In the middle of this dark night, I keep company with James Joyce, St. Thomas, Proust, my father, scribbling the lines that Psyche proffers, only in silence, only in solitude. When I least anticipate a visit, she comes. A phrase connected to a long psychic thread pulled from the raveled skein of memory emerges from a forgotten abyss, drawn by some mysterious provocation into the semi-light of night. I, the sleepy, reluctant scribe, hide my small electric candle under conjugal blankets to notate as best I can results of an inner reasoning, imponderable to the day mind, but beckoning through a fog of nepenthe to be recorded on a white page. If I do not heed the siren's call, a key phrase will be lost in the sea of dreams, and I will wake, rested but empty. My companions, Joyce, St. Thomas, Proust, my father, still sleeping after their night labors. And so with heavy hooded eyes, I scribble my small offering, each fragile, resilient strand, part of the homespun weave of human story. So we're all part of that human story. So I guess I'll end, let's see. I'm going to read one that's a quintessential Vermont poem. It's short, and then the last one. It's called Night Kitten. This is driving home from the Zendo very late, very, very late one night. No other cars on the road. The car seems to float on the river of dark road. Glistening lights skim few forms as I glide by. One lone kitten picking her way is the only movement I see. Solitary, I too stay my course. Mind slipping between liquid space and memory, holding the past and present as close as this wheel, steering towards home. And then the last is wheel. Is it true, as the Buddhists say, that we're on a wheel of life, revolving, evolving? Sometimes as I listen to the news spiraling around the globe, I wonder if we are devolving. How can we call each other enemy when we all love, suffer, rejoice, die? Are we learning anything, or just repeating what has gone before? The wheel turns, we turn with it, turning, turning, turning. So thank you so much for being. I just can't tell you how much I appreciate seeing all of your wonderful faces, and I won't be as nervous a second time. Thank you.